If the Metro North Committee could please come to order. Are there any public speakers?
Yes, Commissioner. We have 4 people signed up this morning. We asked them to adhere to the 2-minute time limit. The first speaker is Randy Glucksman.
Good morning. Last week there were news reports that this summer, when Amtrak undertakes massive track and switch reconstruction project at New York Penn Station, 3 of its Empire service trains would be diverted to Grand Central Terminal. While this is a great idea and a well-deserved thank you goes to Metro North for helping out, an even better idea would to bring all Empire service trains into GCT. I recognize that 3 trains, the Maple Leaf, Adirondack, and Lakeshore Limited, has special servicing requirements, and if these can't be accommodated, then of course they should not be moved. And you may ask, why move all of the others? The answer is simple: to avoid confusion on the part of customers who would not realize that the service is being split between GCT and New York Penn. Any obstacles that presently exist, such as space limitations, could be overcome by not storing trains that are traditionally kept in Grand Central. Amtrak would reimburse Metro North for any additional labor expenses. Remember, in the peak of the New York Central and New Haven Railroad era, those railroads operated far fewer commuter trains, but a lot more long-distance trains out of Grand Central. And I would take the liberty now, so not to have to speak at the next meeting, to give a shout-out to Senior Vice President David Kubitschek for following up on our suggestion to investigate the leasing of passenger cars from MTA Maryland that will provide additional equipment for Long Island Railroad customers. I urge the committee to approve the lease agreement. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Orrin Getz.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board. My name is Orrin Getz. I'm Vice Chairman of the Metro North Rail Commuter Council. One of the areas of concern is so there are certain parts of Grand Central which seem to have poor reception on cell phones. And I've noticed that I've had some difficulty in certain areas. Also, when the trains go through the Park Avenue tunnels, the cell service doesn't work. And it really created a major problem for me. I'd appreciate if the MTA could look into what can be done to activate cell service on the Park Avenue tunnels. It's a very major part of our transportation network, and we should be able to get decent cell service in those tunnels. The other thing that was important was months ago, Chairman Metzger told us about parking a police trailer at Harriman Station and bringing a police car up and having it there. And that greatly helped things, made the situation a lot better at Harriman. Well, we have a similar situation at Spring Valley. There's an empty police booth in the police station that used to be manned by the Village of Spring Valley Police, but right now is empty. There's a major problem with things going on at the Spring Valley train station, and that's why I'm requesting that the MTA police look into what can be done to man that booth and make sure that there is some better police presence at Spring Valley. Also, our local officials have said having a better police presence in Rockland County is important. Even though we have top-of-the-line police forces, having the MTA police available when they need them quickly is very important. Also, where our cameras supposedly at the Spring Valley train station, we don't know if they work. Nobody knows what's going on there. So possibly somebody could look into that and see what was going on with those cameras. And if they can be fixed and be used, it would be a great enhance to the security of the Spring Valley train station. And just one final item, and I've said it before, Rockland County considers it very critical to have the Suffern train station made handicapped accessible. This is a top priority project for Rockland County. And New Jersey Transit says it's our station, but if you want to do it, you can do it. They don't want to pay for it. So we have to kind of work out a deal where Metro North can pay for it and come up possibly with a design build and get that station handicapped accessible as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Murray Bowden.
Good morning. I sent an article around to the board yesterday or the day before saying that many board members are not fulfilling their obligations. And the members of the board sitting here today are not filling your obligations. I've said that Metro North at the Mount Kisco station is breaking the law. You've done nothing about it. I'd like to meet with one of you members of the board to go out there with me. Not the president of the railroad anymore because he's irrelevant. And actually look at what they have done and have not corrected. I've pointed it out to you. It's your responsibility to oversee the president, and you're not doing it. So unless one of you are willing to meet with me up there and see what they've done on the ground. I took a ride with the executive director of the Thruway Authority for an hour, and we looked at those things that I've been discussing, and he said, "What, is that what you really meant?" And it's going to be corrected. I asked to meet with the chair of the Port Authority, and it took 23 hours to schedule a meeting, and I met with him, and John and I, though we disagree on a lot of items, we discussed friendly. We parted friendly, but we still disagree. Susan, you're a holdover since 2010, 7 years. Does that make you independent in the way you run the meeting? If you haven't been confirmed in 7 years, how can I expect you to do the job in my interest and not wanting to stay on this board? Just an example. The world has changed, people. It's your responsibility to see what I have asked for is addressed. And until one of you goes out there with me on the ground and looks at it, you're at fault. Because that's so egregious that it's going to be on TV, multiple channels, within the next few weeks. And not by me. When I bring it to the attention of other people, they'll have their TV cameras there. I sent you an email, Mitch, with certain ones that I know particularly. I've thought more about it. There's going to be somebody out there who can bring a press corps with them. It's that bad. You're permitting the president of Metro North to break the law. That is, shall I repeat myself, break the law? And you're doing nothing about it. That makes this board, those people sitting at the table, complicit. And if you can't do your jobs, you don't belong on this board.
Our final speaker is Jason Pinheiro.
Good morning. After having surgery and after hearing the nonsense of Murray Bowden, we have to get into business. First of all, we need the pilot project of Freedom Ticket in Metro North to give it the same treatment as Long Island Railroad, right, Mitch? This program should be on the Hudson Line between all the stations south of Ludlow, including Spartan-Dybel, that's the most desert area in the Bronx. And to finally put Wi-Fi in Grand Central, especially in the dining area, there is no reception there. I do often do deliveries in that area, and I don't get service for the job that I do. So I recommend you guys don't listen what Murray Bowden says, because he is a zero to the left. Keep doing your job, and you guys have my support. That's all I have to say this month.
That concludes the speakers.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor? Are there any changes to the work plan?
There are no changes to the work plan.
In that case, may we have the agency report?
Sure. I'm going to begin by speaking about the derailment that occurred last Thursday. At approximately 5 p.m. last Thursday, May 18th, a westbound Metro North train on the New Haven line, traveling at a slow-speed zone, experienced a derailment on track 3 just east of the Rye station, causing 5 cars of the 12-car consist to come off the tracks. The train was traveling from Stamford to GCT and would have arrived at 5:42. It derailed as the train was approaching Rye station and remained upright. There were approximately 185 passengers on board. Interim Executive Director Ronnie Hakem and I were on the scene that evening, along with Metro North personnel, MTA police, and personnel from the FRA. 3 customers and 1 employee were transported to local hospitals for minor injuries. 8 other customers were evaluated at the scene and refused medical treatment. By 6:30 p.m., the remaining passengers had been transferred to another train and were taken down to GCT. We very much appreciate the quick response of all the first responders who came out so quickly at the scene of the derailment. The loss of track 3 that evening resulted in 11 trains being canceled, 2 trains being terminated, and customers experienced delays averaging about 40 minutes that whole evening. Metro North crews continued to work through the night at the derailment site and were successful in re-railing 3 of the 5 derailed cars. Since then, we have been operating regular New Haven line service on 3 of the 4 remaining tracks. Because of the track damage, we've had to install bridge plates at Greenwich, Portchester, and Rye, so the inbound trains are going on the outbound platform and the outbound trains are going on the inbound platform. The AM peak service plan will remain in effect until the repairs are completed on track 3. And I'm actually going to break with protocol and turn the floor over to Glenn Hayden so he can explain a little bit about the work that was done over the weekend to try to restore service and give you a timetable in terms of recovery.
Thank you. The Maintenance Away Forces started their reconstruction work immediately following the completion of re-railing activities. During the day on Saturday, we removed approximately 800 feet of damaged track, concrete ties, welded rail. Over the evening, Saturday into Sunday, we dug out ballast and established a new roadbed. During the day, Sunday, we installed 480 new wooden ties, put the brand new welded rail back on, clipped it up, and started dumping stone. Today, we will be finishing dumping stone and then start surfacing the track. We appear to be on schedule to return track 3 to service sometime tomorrow.
Okay. The cause of the derailment is still under investigation by Metro North, and actually after this meeting, Glenn and I will be headed up to Rye Station to meet 2 investigators from the NTSB. They're on the scene to evaluate our investigation to see whether further investigation is warranted. One more incident to talk to you about this morning. Yesterday, there was a trespasser fatality at Hartsdale Station. This occurred about 2:30 in the afternoon. As a result, there was 1 canceled train, 2 terminated trains, and up to 16 trains were up to a half an hour late. We single-tracked through the area for about 4.5 hours. Okay. On to happier things. I want to provide an update on a project that is currently underway to install a new modern wayside cab signal system, which is going to replace the older automatic block system on the Port Jervis line. So Susan is interested in this, yay. This system supports the installation of access on the line to enhance the level of safety and provides for additional future service growth. Furthermore, it demonstrates MTA's continued investment on our West of Hudson line. The first of 5 segment cutovers was implemented the first week of April, and the second cutover is scheduled to take place in August, with overall project completion scheduled for 2020. Next, our Office of System Safety TRACS program will be participating in this year's ILCAD event on Friday, June 2nd. ILCAD stands for International Level Crossing Awareness Day, and this is an international event. We've actually been on this for a couple of years, right? That takes place annually in 40 countries on the first Friday in June to bring awareness to grade crossing safety. We will carry out ILCAD and Metro North's public awareness on the dangers of risky behavior at grade crossings. We're coordinating this effort with the MTA police. A little bit about our performance in the month of April. Trains operated above goal at 96.3%. Our year-to-date OTP is 95.7%. All service periods across all 3 lines operated above goal. West of Hudson service operated at 93.7 for the month of April. Fleet availability remained good during the month with a consist compliance of 99%. And in March, our overall MTBF was slightly above goal. Customer complaints during the month of April were down 13% from March and 40% lower than April of last year. As indicated in a May 22nd memorandum that was distributed to this committee, required schedule adjustments for certain Harlem Line and Hudson Line trains will take effect on Sunday, June 4th through Saturday, October 7th. These are temporary schedule changes that will be between 1 and 6 minutes. During the 18-week period, Metro-North will conduct a $5 million comprehensive track improvement program between Mount Vernon West and Crestwood that will renew the railroad's infrastructure and ensure continued rail safety and reliability. This ongoing proactive work to repair the railroad's infrastructure, which Glenn reports on quarterly, will cover track and drainage improvements. Crews will install 1,000 new cross ties and 1,160 feet of new rail. They'll improve drainage, renew the track bed, and perform general cleanup of the area across the tracks. To minimize the disruption, the project will remove 1 track at a time from service for an uninterrupted period in this 3-track area, allowing several maintenance groups to work concurrently. But to lessen the potential for rush hour congestion and delays on the segment, Metro-North is making a number of temporary scheduling changes. No trains will be canceled or combined as part of the schedule change. This aggressive program will take place during the day and late night in order to limit the impact on our customers and the communities we serve, and we want to complete the work in time for the October schedule change. We've begun a comprehensive communications effort with our customers in advance of the upcoming schedule change, and we appreciate our customers' patience throughout the duration of this program. As we reported at last month's meeting, Metro-North teamed up with the New York Blood Center for the 5th annual blood drive in GCT's Vanderbilt Hall. Employees and customers rolled up their sleeves and contributed to the much-needed effort. The event generated 259 donations of life-saving blood, and since each unit of blood can help save up to 3 lives, the event has the potential to touch the lives of up to 770 people. We thank all employees and community members who gave so generously to this very important cause. Metro-North will also be hosting additional blood drives in our outlying employee facilities. Finally, I wanted to make an announcement that our VP of Human Resources, Catherine Beatrice Kendall, retired from Metro-North last Friday. She was actually supposed to be here this morning, but she retired last Friday. Catherine joined Metro-North in 2014 as VP of Human Resources after 2 years at headquarters, several years at the BSC, and 28 years at New York City Transit. We are going to miss Catherine very much, and we thank her so much for her dedication and hard work, and we wish her the very best in her retirement. We expect to fill the position expeditiously, but in the meantime, Yvonne Hill-Donnell will be acting VP of Human Resources. And now I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? No questions? Well, I'd like to comment on your on-time performance for East of Hudson. It's pretty great. Safety report, please.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. The safety report can be found on page 16 of the book. I'd like to report that the customer accident rate is down over 12% versus the previous 12 months. The employee lost time injury rate is up nearly 18% versus the previous 12 months. Much of the increase is attributed to Winter Storm Stella. For the month of March, there are no new grade crossing incidents, mainline FRA train derailments, or mainline FRA train collisions. Our safety education community outreach program, TRACS, which stands for Together Railroads and Communities Keeping Safe, has reached over 5,600 individuals for the month of March and over 21,000 year to date. This concludes the safety report for now. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Hearing none, we'll move into the police report, but I do have a question that is directed to both of you. We've been putting a significant effort into dealing with the grade crossing issues that we've had, and I wonder if there is some way to know whether we're having a positive impact because it seems that we still have a significant number of grade crossing issues. Is there any metric or way to evaluate the efficacy of the efforts that we've put in?
Yes, one very telling way is to look at the metrics as far as enforcement. We have increased the enforcement at grade crossings. You know, for the past 3 months, actually the first 3 months of the year, we've issued a number of summonses, an increase from the previous period. That's 193 details, I'm sorry, 193 summonses versus 118 summonses. And we've done specific details at grade crossings a number of times, actually 451 separate details versus 385 during the same period. So we are increasing the enforcement, we're increasing the visibility at grade crossings to change behavior.
I think in the long run, the education effort has to change that behavior. It's inconceivable to me that people would try to cross a railroad track, but...
The other thing, Susan, that we're particularly proud of is the TRACS program, which has been in place for, I think, exactly a year now. I mean, we've really done significant outreach in the communities to try to bring people up to a reasonable level of awareness with respect to grade crossing safety issues. It's built on the Long Island program, which has been out there for many years. So we're very proud of the program and its reach and how many people we've been able to reach in a relatively short period of time.
Susan, can I ask, Chief, with regard to the summonses, what is the normal summons for, if there is a normal summons?
Well, during these details, we enforce any violations at the crossing, but the focus is the particular violation of passing a down gate, and that's the focus, to change that type of behavior, and we've had some significant effect.
So if the summons is for passing the down gate, I assume there's a police officer there seeing that, either through the detail or whatever context that is occurring in.
We are witnessing the violation.
Okay. Thank you.
And now your full report, please.
Yes, good morning. Well, for the month of April, system-wide, we've experienced a reduction in total major felonies. That's 16 versus 29, or a reduction of 45%. In year-to-date, system-wide, we've also got a 15% reduction. That's 78 versus 92 major felonies, down 14. In Metro North, we've experienced a reduction of 46%. That's 7 crimes versus 13, down 6. And year-to-date in Metro North Railroad, there's a reduction of 18%, 37 versus 45, down 8. This past Friday, MTA Police recognized officers at our annual Medal Day ceremony, recognized heroism and an outstanding police work. I'd like to thank the board for the support of the MTA PD, and I'd also like to publicly thank all of those awardees for the outstanding police work.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief? Hearing none. Information items?
The first quarter report for Diversity and EEO report is in the book and will be discussed in greater detail today at the Diversity Committee meeting.
Thank you. In that case, may we have the procurements, please?
Good morning. There are 8 procurements in this month's package totaling $50,932,007. There are 2 non-competitive procurements in the amount of $7,560,970. There are 6 competitive procurements in the amount of $43,371,037. There are no ratifications this month. A The first non-competitive procurement action is a modification to a miscellaneous service agreement to ARINC, Inc. in the not-to-exceed amount of $5,060,970 for the SCADA upgrade power control network. ARINC is the OEM supplier of the SCADA system, which was purchased in 2002. This upgrade is necessary at this time to ensure continued reliable service while also tying in many of the most recent technology upgrades such as the Enhanced Emergency Protection System, GCT Operations Control Center, and the CTC. Given the vital role of the SCADA system in supporting these critical systems, this upgrade is absolutely necessary at this time in an effort to ensure long-term solutions are found. M&R is currently reviewing the industry's newest technologies while also looking at new design concepts with open architecture, which will follow this procurement. The second non-competitive procurement is a request for an additional funding for the all-agency temporary personnel service agreement with New York Industries for the Disabled, or NYSID, in the amount of $2.5 million. This budget adjustment is required for Metro North and New York City Transit only. This adjustment is required to continue to receive the temporary services until such time that HQ procurement is able to put into place a new all-agency agreement. This agreement is being extended and funded to coincide with the start of that agreement. There are 6 competitive procurement actions, and the first competitive procurement is a request to use the RFP process for the supply, lease, and delivery of an automated vehicle location and monitoring system. As a precursor to soliciting proposals for this equipment, M&R has conducted an extensive outreach. This was accomplished by formally requesting input from the limited vendor community who provided this type of technology. A total of 12 firms were contacted with 9 responses received. The second competitive procurement is a request to use the RFP process for the design and construction of the Empire State Trail beacon line. This portion of the Governor Cuomo's Empire State Trail system is along M&R's beacon line connecting Putnam County to Dutchess County Trail in Hopewell Junction. This design-build process will be used to optimize getting this project completed in the fastest and most economic means possible. The third competitive procurement is to Loran Maintenance of Way, Inc. This is recommended in the amount of not to exceed $18,199,441 and is a joint agency contract for Metro North and Long Island Railroad. These services were competitively solicited, however, only one bid was received. Negotiations were held to ensure the railroads received the most favored customer pricing. The fourth competitive procurement is to Bowery Residence Committee, BRC. This is recommended in an amount not to exceed $2.142399. These services were competitively solicited and 2 firms were considered for this award. These services are being specifically established for outside of the New York City's metropolitan area. The MTA's outreach program will continue to manage outreach services for Grand Central. The fifth competitive procurement is to Trapeze Software Group, Inc. for the design and implementation of a centralized train scheduling system. This is recommended in the amount not to exceed $3,929,197 and is a joint agency contract for M&R and Long Island Railroad. This project will be automating not only the train scheduling but also the crew schedules and equipment programs. These activities are currently manually performed. The contract has been negotiated to allow M&R's design to be tested and validated prior to the initiation of the Long Island Railroad's unique design. The economies of M&R's design will be realized by Long Island Railroad. The sixth and final competitive procurement is to Automotive Resource International for fleet maintenance and management. This is recommended in the amount not to exceed $19,100,000 and is an all-agency contract with this amendment necessary for M&R and Long Island Railroad only. This adjustment is required to continue maintenance and management services until such time that HQ procurement is able to put into place a new all-agency agreement. This agreement is being extended and funded to coincide with the start of that agreement. Need a vote on all the procurements presented.
Thank you. I make a motion to recommend these procurements. May I have a second? And discussion?
Yeah. On that procurement on the beacon line, or the beacon to the trail, I'm trying to remember now, but the last, what exactly is that? What are we doing there, and where is that going from and to?
Let me jump in and help you. So what it's going, it's essentially going from southeast to all the way to Hopewell Junction, where it will then hook up with a Dutchess County trail that exists right now, and that trail then continues to the walkway over the Hudson. The governor's trying to thread a trail from the Battery to Canada and from Albany to Niagara Falls. our section is on the Beacon line in Putnam County and in Dutchess County. We're working with Putnam. They're doing pieces as well. They have a section that they've just completed around the village of Brewster, Pump House Road to Route 22. We've been working with them. They are going to continue to do more sections. We're going to do about 3.5 miles in Putnam County and 15 in Dutchess.
Okay. But it's all walking trail?
It's all walking, bikes, strollers, etc.
Okay, thanks.
And that's funded by the state, right? The MTA is not...
Mike, please.
Yes, that's
Turn on
correct.
your mic, please.
In the budget this year, $40 million was set aside for the section that we're talking about right now, and then other funds were set aside for other segments across the state.
Yeah, I wanted to speak and get some clarification on two other procurements. The Loram, I guess I'm pronouncing that right, maintenance of way. Why did we only get one bid on this thing?
It is, in fact, a very unique service. We did canvass the rest of the M&W industry to see if there was others, but what Metro North and Long Island request for is having the vehicles on property with staff to operate it for the full construction season, which makes it a lot more difficult than a lot of firms that may or may not want to participate, typically don't want to commit their equipment all to one site for the full season.
Right, but now we're paying $18.2 million for this service. This is a 3-year contract, correct? It replaced what? How long a contract?
This is a continuation of services that they previously provided, which was also a 3-year agreement.
Okay, and what did we pay for the previous 3-year contract?
This agreement was escalated in the last 2 years only, so we paying the same that we paid previously for the first 3 years in the last part of the agreement.
No, but this new agreement now for $18 million too, that's a 3-year agreement. The original 3-year agreement was how much?
I don't have that handy for me, sir. I'd have to get the information to you.
Okay, because I'd like to know, since this is a sole source essentially contract, I'd like to know what the $18.2 million has replaced and what we were paying for the original initial 3-year contract, because this is really a sole source, even though it was bid out, and I understand that. For whatever reason, there were no other responsible bidders, and I'd like to know what we're paying now as opposed to what we paid for the original contract. That's number one. Number two, Automotive Resources International. You're renewing this contract for, what is it, 2 years? 2 years. Okay, at $19.1 million. The original contract was let me make sure I got this right, it was how long a contract? 5-year?
Yes, sir.
5-year contract, and the original contract was for $34 million, correct? $34,080,000 for the original 5 years. Now for 2 years, we're paying $19.1 million, which is a hell of an increase. And I wanted to know how many other bidders did we have on this thing?
Well, sir, in preparation for making this submission today, we had discussed with Long Island Railroad and our own usage of and the aging of our automotive fleet, whether it be also heavy equipment that's run through ARI or over-the-road fleet. So this is a correspondingly higher number, but it directly correlates to the fact that the vehicles have aged and those vehicles haven't been replaced. So that's what you see in terms of the uptick in terms of the total dollars that's allocated.
Yeah, but I'd like to understand this. I mean, here we're asking for a 2-year contract for $19 million. The original 5-year contract was $34. So if you equate this out, this is a huge increase in expense. I don't know the age of the fleet. I mean, I assume we replace these vehicles on a regular scheduled retirement schedule. Why would this thing go up this much? And when we instead of extending this, we had a 5-year contract. Why didn't we rebid the 5-year contract? I mean, that's not a new contract. That contract was in existence for 5 years, and this is a very expensive contract, which in my opinion should have been bid out.
Let me try to explain on from the Long Island Railroad perspective, the age of the fleet, as Al was indicating, and to your comment about trying to replace vehicles on a routine schedule. A lot of that is predicated on budget and the ability to procure these replacement vehicles in a timely fashion. Most of the money attributed to the contractors for the railroad, mostly for our heavy-duty fleet, excuse me, which is the fleet equipped with high rail gear, does a lot of the work on the rail. Many of those vehicles are currently planned for procurements. They have been planned for procurements. We have work plans and a hiring plan that will be supported by these vehicles when they arrive. That procurement process, unfortunately, has been a little bit delayed due to the consolidation of core and non-core assets with BSC. So we are working on the administrative end of things to try to get the procurements for the replacement vehicles in place. We have money in this maintenance contract to cover the length of time it's going to take to replace some of these vehicles, as some of them have in excess of 24-month delivery dates. But as vehicles are received and replace some of the older vehicles, we will not be spending the maintenance money that we're putting in the contract now. It's more of a safety net, if you will, most of the money for the railroad. We don't anticipate that we're going to spend all that money.
Right, but I understand what you're saying, but if you have a 5-year contract that you know that's coming up, and this is not a nothing contract, this is a $35 million, was a $34 million contract, why wasn't a procurement sent out for competitive bids for a renewal? What we've done here is we took a 5-year contract that's been around for a long time, and I don't negate what you're saying, but what we've done, forgetting about all that, what we've done is instead of going out for procurement last year when we knew the 5-year contract was coming up, we've just renewed this without bidding, and now we're into a deal here which is going to cost us, I mean, I haven't figured the numbers out, but it looks like a huge increase to me on a yearly basis.
This goes back, and you'll see some of these as we go through till we get all of the administrative details worked out with BSC. This is a contract that
but
was.
You can't blame the business center completely for this. I understand all.
We're not trying to place blame. We're just trying to give you the facts. We did know,
but the
both
facts
of us.
Are we didn't bid the contract out. We knew the contract was coming up. This is a lot of money. This is a $40 million contract.
Agreed.
State money, not nothing, not a small little thing. This thing that I'm sure there's a million people. There's quite a few companies that would be very interested in bidding something like this, I would think, in the New York metropolitan area.
Kathy, I'd like you to comment.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm a little bit concerned about this one because this is, as Dennis said, there are every couple of months there's a number of procurements that are brought back to the individual committees because of the ongoing MTA HQ procurement consolidation. And we are specifically requested to extend those contracts to allow contracts to expire at the same time in view and with the expectation that there's going to be an all-agency procurement. This is one of those. So it's not as if the agencies were not being proactive in terms of looking for other opportunities.
Is Phil here now? Is he at this meeting?
Yeah, Phil.
Veronica?
Phil was here. I don't know.
Is Phil here?
He was here earlier. But this is another one of those opportunities where we're deliberately looking towards a coordinated all-agency procurement.
But I understand what's happening with the business center. As a matter of fact, I was in a discussion this morning before the meeting with Phil and Bob Foran about exactly, and while we were talking about this. I understand what's going on, but this is a lot of money, and I don't think we should be renewing this contract for 2 years now until we bid this thing out. And if this is happening now and this thing's backing up, I would like to hear from Veronica about what we're doing about the business center, because if there's more, Kathy, and I'm sure what you're saying is right, and what this gentleman's saying, I understand this, then we've got a real management problem in here, and we better address it right now, because this may be just the tip of the iceberg where we're going to have a lot of these contracts backed up that are not being bid out.
Well, I mean,
and I think we should stop right now, and we should find out what's going on. At least I'd like to know before we approve any of these contracts, because this may be just the tip of the iceberg, but we're talking about big money here, big money for state money here.
Andrew, I am unable to stop moving forward with the things that Metro North and Long Island Railroad need, because we need more information that should have been provided by BSC.
I don't agree with you, Susan.
I realize
I'm sorry,
that.
I don't agree with that. I think we should right now stop, and we should understand what's going on here.
Jamie?
Am I reading this right? But in this meeting today, you're not asking for the 30-some-odd million. You're asking for, they're asking for $2.5 million.
No, they're asking for 19 million, 2-year extension for a contract that wasn't bid out now for 5 years.
19.
Phil, obviously you weren't here for you don't know what we were just talking about, but what happened was, Kathy, could you please explain where we are?
Yeah, this is the Automotive Resource International contract. It's a 2-year extension. This is a contract for both Long Island, for vehicle maintenance services for both Long Island and Metro North. And I was explaining to Andrew that every now and again we will get a request from BSC that in view of the desire to ultimately bring those into HQ and have a coordinated all-agency procurement, we will occasionally be requested to do an extension so that various contracts will be coterminous at the same time, then we can coordinate all agency procurement efforts. We actually have 2 in the package this month. We have this one and we have a NICID contract. And then it happens on occasion that we work with HQ. They identify contracts that they view as appropriate for an all-agency approach, and we will occasionally be requested to extend those. So where I pushed back on Andrew a little bit was when he suggested it was a lack of foresight and preparation on the part of the agencies in terms of not procuring additional services. I don't agree with that. I think that this is more part of the partnership with BSC in terms of determining which items may be appropriate for an all-agency approach, and sometimes we have to bite the bullet and extend the contracts while that all-agency approach is being firmed up. So that's essentially the back and forth that you missed.
But I understand. Matter of fact, I spoke to Wal this morning, and I spoke to Phil. You know, we had a nice discussion this morning about the business center and the purchasing agent and all these things. But now I understand. I just happen to be going through the Metro North procurements, and I see that we're renewing a contract for 2 years for over $19 million, where the original contract for 5 years was $34 million, and we have not bid this contract out for over 5 years. And I think this is an area where this is basically a sole source thing we're doing, where there should be many bidders that would be very anxious to take care of the MTA's fleet of vehicles or construction equipment or whatever, heavy equipment. And I think it's really wrong. And what this gentleman here from Metro North said was the fact is the reason we hadn't bid this thing out was the business center has become the excuse for not bidding it out. I'm not saying excuse, but the fact is the reason it wasn't bid out was it was a central consolidated item. And Kathy then said, well, this is just, there's many other procurements.
Not about many, but several.
Coming along that haven't been bid out when they should have been bid out because of the business center situation. And I think that's really wrong, and these are not small contracts. We're talking a lot of money here.
Your mic isn't on.
This is not a sole source.
Is his mic off? Your mic is off.
By any means.
Andrew, yes, I know that we're very committed to using the buying power and leveraging what we can do across all agencies. What I gather here is that we're looking to ensure that we continue to have those services, but I assure you that we're committed to moving these procurements in a more consolidated manner to leverage what we can in terms of getting competition, but also ensuring that the multi-agency procurements, where appropriate, will be used. And I've seen this in other agencies, and we were committed to doing that here, Andrew. I assure you of that.
Right, but we shouldn't go ahead and approve an expensive contract like this that hasn't been bid out for over 5 years, where I guarantee you we would have, a lot of vendors that would be competitive here. This is not a technology or a sole source thing where you wouldn't have competition on it. So here we're going to give a huge increase where we haven't even bid the contract out, and I personally would never vote for something like this. I think it's wrong.
Mitch, you have a question?
Am I to assume, Phil and our friends from procurement, that at the end of the 2-year contract, which this is for, that somebody, either the railroads themselves or the Business Service Center, will be putting out a longer-term contract for these services or related services to some degree that will be bid out to anybody who wants to, but that what we are trying to do at the moment for the next 2 years is to fill a gap between the end of the current 5-year contract and when that time occurs, and the assumption being that the current contractor is the best entity to continue that for the gap period of time. Is that what I assume is happening here?
The plan is obviously to move it into a central procurement location. It is non-core. We would be carrying out the procurement. If it is core, meaning relating directly to a train or track or a signal, it will be handled by the agencies. The CPOs, myself at the BSC, our leadership here are as eager to get procurement done and closed and moved as possible. It is more, even though it's just 100 people that we're consolidating, it's a lot more complicated than IT consolidation, which was 1,000+ people, because of the differences between core and non-core and the need to bring those in. And we've had our own staffing issues that we've had to deal with very firmly and very strongly in the middle of this very delicate procurement.
But to answer that, Mitch, yes, the intent is to just have this and not continue sole sourcing in the future. That we agree that sole sourcing is not always the best way in terms of getting the best value. In terms of bidding is obviously a much better way in creating competition.
And if my mathematics is correct, which is not always, but if my mathematics is correct, it is an additional $2.5 million a year for these services above what the contractor is being paid now per year. There's a $5 million difference between the average of the 5-year period, if you take 5 and divide it by the number, and what we're paying for 2. So there's a $5 million difference, give or take, which is $2.5 million a year. And in management's position, they believe that is a fair assumption of the cost to enable us to get to a time when we will put out an actual bid for these services, which are essential to have. Nobody is disagreeing the essentiality of the services, that we will put out a bid at that time once this 2-year period is over and see what we get from everybody. Is that what I'm getting here?
Yeah, that's it.
I would like to address that. I guess what I don't want to do is have this characterized that we're paying a premium. Right. So what we're paying here is, and you see the uptick in the dollars, is directly associated with more and more vehicles that we have to process during the life cycle of those vehicles. That's the direct.
Right.
It's the age of the fleet, Mitch.
The assumption being the older the fleet, the more maintenance services they need. The more maintenance services they need, that's why this average per year is higher by $2.5 million than the average of the previous contract.
That's correct.
And our hope, our goal, in one way or the other, the end of this 2-year period would be either that we have replaced some of the older vehicles to reduce their maintenance costs, goal 1, and goal 2 is that we put out an actual bid, because by the end of this 2-year period, or sometime between now and the end of the 2-year period, we will know exactly how that is going to be handled. Is that where we are?
Exactly correct.
Thank you.
So
I just see this thing
there are
completely
two
different.
things that have come out of this. One is that BSC is confident that in 2 years' time they'll be able to take over this kind of a contract. And that 2-year time period, was that defined by BSC?
council meeting of all of the chief procurement officers, and we selected certain timeframes for extension that everybody felt would be reasonable. As Kathy said, you will see more extensions because of our transitioning and our status right now.
We have seen them already. Now, I further understand that Metro North and Long Island Railroad believe that the additional cost of $5 million can be justified because we have an aging fleet and more vehicles.
The number of vehicles is about the same, and demographic-wise, they're about the same for each railroad. The Long Island Railroad's has many more heavy-duty vehicles than Metro North does.
How can you justify that when you haven't bid the contract out? That's baloney. And you want to know something? I think it's wrong to say that at the meeting. There's no way you know what this contract would have been if it wouldn't have been bid out. I'm sorry. And you know something? This is wrong. The business center, we spent 5 years working on this thing to get it to the point it was. Unfortunately, we had a personnel problem that was very serious, which I knew at the time was going to really set us back. And I wonder how many other procurements are here now. We're just giving out basically sole source extensions on these contracts because we haven't bid them out. And I think it's really wrong. Here you got an agency that's fighting for every nickel that we have, and we're doing things like this. We can't even hire a purchasing agent to take over. This has been how many months now since Angel went down the drain? A long time. And this was something this was a crucial thing for us. And it's a very big part of our budget to save money on this procurement. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, and I think this is wrong. And you know what? You can justify anything you want about $2 million and $3 million. It's real money, and it's not right. And this thing should have been bid out properly, and if we knew we had a problem in the business center, we should have hired a purchasing agent or put somebody in there that was going to bid these contracts out.
Thank you,
and I
Andrew.
would never vote for this. I'm sorry, Susan. You can justify,
I understand.
yes, you can justify anything you want in this place, but to vote for this as a fiduciary is wrong. This is a lot of money.
Thank you, Andrew. I think there are 4 of us on this committee that had great hopes and worked hard for the BSC, and I'm confident that in the long run, this will work. I'm frustrated too.
I'm not at all confident.
Susan,
I think this is something top management should look at. This is wrong, and to vote something like that is wrong.
Jamie?
I do think it speaks to, as we have this transition to the BSC, and I feel like with some regularity I find myself in the position, as others here do, of having a vote on a non-competitive procurement that has so little runway in front of it before it needs to actually take effect, that's for millions and millions of dollars, that the essential underlying message is that we can't run our operations if we don't do it. At which point, it's not really a vote. I mean, this thing renews in July, the end of July, is that correct?
It's a Metro North procurement.
So we sit here at the end of May being told unless you approve a non-competitive bid for $20 million, we don't have fleet maintenance for the vehicles on Metro North Railroad. It's not even a vote at that point. I mean, I think we need to, and there was an incredible amount of forward visibility that this was coming, I presume. So whether anyone here agrees with Andrew or not, it's not a viable debate that we can have when we have no runway before it. So I think it's imperative that we get as much advance on this as we possibly can. I'm sure there's complications around negotiating with the vendor and those things. At the same time, you know, it puts us in an impossible position.
Kathy?
No, I think that's fair criticism, and your point is well taken, and we'll do our best not to put the committee in that position.
Thank you. Are there comments on any of the other procurements? Then I ask for a vote. Those in favor?
You want to do them separately, Ms. Vander, or do you want to do them?
Shall we do them separately?
I think you do them separately.
Yeah.
We'll do the Non-competitive, can we do it that way? There are a lot of them. Let's do the non-competitive procurements first. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. It'll be recommended to the board. The competitive procurements, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? We will recommend it to the board. And that's it. Thank you. Information items? The monthly reports.
Yeah, the monthly reports on Metro North's operations, financial performance, ridership, and capital program are included in the agenda book for your information, and we're available to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions? Hearing none. Is there a motion?
So moved. Adjourn.
Thank you. Second. Those in favor?
I wouldn't vote for this stuff. I don't worry about it. That's no problem. How are you going to vote for that?